In breaking news, Sanctuary AI, one of the leading humanoid bot companies, just announced a blockbuster partnership with Magna International, one of the largest companies in the automotive supply sector. And this partnership is wide-ranging. Not only is Magna providing additional investment, they'll also deploy Sanctuary's Phoenix robots in their manufacturing operations, and they'll also explore manufacturing of the bots themselves. So before this, only Tesla had a credible plan for manufacturing the bots at scale, but now with this partnership, Sanctuary has stepped up to the big leagues. I've got Scott Walter with us. He's a two-time robotics company founder. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining me on this one.
Herbert, it's great to be here. I guess we're not actually shocked or surprised. I think I called this maybe about 9 or 10 months ago.
I'll play the little clip of that where 10 months ago you did talk about this. This is a big deal. Now, we know that Sanctuary has already gotten investment from Magna, but the partnership could have been bigger, more than just investment, and now they got it. So let's announce that. You've got this press release that Sanctuary just dropped, and it says Sanctuary AI expands general purpose robot footprint in the automotive manufacturing industry. They've got a partnership and an investment with Magna, and they're going to support the development, the deployment, and the scaling of general purpose robots. Now, just to remind folks, Sanctuary actually won the Time Magazine Best Inventions of 2023, and later we'll show that they actually just announced another big partnership just 2 weeks ago with Accenture. These guys are just rocking it. So this is their announcement, right? So Sanctuary creates the human-like intelligence of a world's first human-like intelligence in general purpose robots. And this company, Magna, it really is so big because they are manufacturing operations. They're going to deploy the bots there. And you can explain to me what you read here, but a multidisciplinary assessment of improving cost and scalability of robots using Magna's automotive product portfolio, engineering, and manufacturing capabilities. What I read is that Magna is an expert in basically manufacturing, products that go into automotive cars. And now they can actually just add robots as one of the products that they're going to create. And of course, a strategic equity investment by Magna. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah. Well, the first thing about Magna is I think when we first discussed this, I said it's one of the largest automotive OEMs that you've never heard of. So they are not a car brand, but they are the company behind most of the major car brands because they're the ones that build the lines that build the cars. They are a Canadian, Austrian company, engineering company, huge around the world. They know how to build automated systems, especially with robotic systems. And they also know how to build the human factors in. So I've done work with Magna in the past with a couple of the different engineering divisions. And a lot of it was like looking at the human factors, the fact that you have humans that are interacting with these robot cells, and how to deal with that, the safety fencing, everything else. And so it's sort of a natural for them to already understand how can we replace that with a humanoid bot. So that makes absolute total sense. And then even if they aren't, let's say, your typical manufacturer, there's like one situation where they were kind of the manufacturer, and that was actually they built the car for Fisker because they know how to build an automotive plant. They also know how to run it. It's just that usually their clients are the ones running the plants. So they know how to build products if they need to. They know what the automation is going to look like. And because they have an extensive automotive portfolio, they know some very intricate, complex equipment and parts that are going to be very similar to what's going into a robot and how to scale those things, how to build up the lines. So it makes sense that they would have the capability to be able to scale bots at an affordable cost. The other thing that if we're reading in between the lines, it's looking at their product portfolio. It almost sounds to me like they're trying to figure out how to reduce the cost for their clients, because they serve not just the automotive OEMs, but the tier suppliers that go down below that are producing the parts for these automotive companies. And if there's some way that they can produce these lines in such a way that they're able to generate their parts for less cost, they will find a way to do it. And if that means implementing the humanoid bots in there, then that's going to be done. So it almost reads like that to me, because that seems to be the logical sequence they want to do. And I think there's another statement in there that might kind of crystallize that a little bit more. Because again, it was a rather, say, awkward sentence that could be interpreted one of two ways. but I'm pretty sure it means they are going to figure out how to help their end customers also reduce costs by deployment of humanoid bots where appropriate.
Nice. Let's read up the rest of the press release and then we'll break it down because there's some, like you said, very interesting comments that they made. So in the press release, they said that Magna, one of the largest automotive suppliers in the world and a significant buyer of industrial robots. Scott, so you've already said 9 months ago, they're actually a client of yours. You used to sell the software that companies and factories would use to
help them lay out the lines and understand what the lines are going to look like, to do the human factors engineering, to understand the cycle times of the bots, to see which bots are going to work. They are about shaving, fractions of a second off of a process, because over that time you get a lot of cost. So they are really aware of what they have to do to save a penny here and a penny there. So if the humanoid bot is part of that solution, they will definitely use it.
Yeah. So they're one of the largest significant buyers of industrial robots. They aim to leverage Sanctuary AI's robots' unique capabilities across multiple applications within automotive manufacturing processes. So their goal is not just, one specific task. It's going to be in multiple places. The partnership aims to catalyze the scaling of Sanctuary AI's robots. So that means they're going to build it at scale while maturing the technology for use in challenging manufacturing environments for Magna and other industrial and automotive customers.
Yes, and those are the automotive customers of Magna, which means either the OEMs directly or, again, the sub-suppliers that supply the parts that are going in there. And looking again, like all the different processes, not the low-hanging fruit. We know they're going to start with loading the welding cells and stuff like that. We've talked about that enough, feeding the kukas at the robot zoo. They're going to be doing that, but they're also going to be looking at more complicated processes along the way to see where they can do it, probably all the way to final assembly. And there's a lot of places that you can go in and reduce the cost. The other thing I can imagine is that if they have a full understanding of what the humanoid bots capabilities are and the industrial bots capabilities are, they're going to redesign. I've talked about this before. It's going to change the landscape of the factory floor. And a lot of the safety fencing, a lot of the safety equipment you see in there is going to either disappear or is going to move to a different place, which is going to save floor space. It's also going to save operation time. Again, I go back to that Shanghai video that we see where the human is loading the cell. And what the human is doing is loading the cell to another industrial robot. So the industrial robot can feed it to the actual cell. So that robot is like this middleman. And the reason is because it's too dangerous for the human to run in there to load that thing. So they have to do it with a bot that's coordinated with the other industrial bots. A humanoid bot can do that. So you can see, we can eliminate the human in the loop, and also one industrial robot, and the safety fencing, and the floor space that goes with it, and the cycle time. And it's like, you can just see these things are all going to be able to scale together. And that's just like the tip of the iceberg. It's just going to get better and better from there as they begin to realize, oh, we can refactor everything in here. So Magna, they understand the whole plant. Okay, they have such a huge overview, and you just would not believe how many engineers they have around the world. They may be Canadian, Austrian, but that doesn't mean that's the only places they have their offices. They get offices throughout Michigan and throughout the US as well, because they are such a large concern. And, also through other parts of Europe and I think probably over even in Asia. So they really are one of the largest manufacturers. And that's why this is a big deal, because this is complete validation that the humanoid bot form, they invested a little bit of money in Sanctuary in 2001 or 2021, only about 2 years ago. And they like what they've seen with that investment so far. And so now they're getting ready to do the next step. And that makes perfect sense, is that they were probably already thinking, because they know human factors is so important to everything when they design it.
Thank you.
How are the humans going to work in the factory? They understand the problems.
Okay. So we'll play some more of this video shortly. Let's just get back to the finishing up the news, right? So this is what Jordy Rose said. So Scott, you and I, we interviewed Dr. Suzanne Gilder, their Chief Technology Officer. And if you guys want to see, check out that video on my channel. Fantastic interview. And what she was explaining was that the goal for Sanctuary AI is not just creating humanoid bots. They want to become the first organization in the world to create human-like AI. So they're really focusing on this, on the intelligence part of it. And this is what they've been doing for many years. So he goes, world-changing goals like this require world-changing partners. Magna's position as a world leader in the use of robots today makes this partnership an essential advancement for our mission. We're privileged to be working with them and believe they will be a key element in the successful global deployment of our machines. This sounds credible. This sounds really credible to have a partnership like this. And then Magna themselves said this. They're excited to partner with Sanctuary in our mission to advance the future of manufacturing. By integrating general purpose AI robots into our manufacturing facilities for specific tasks, we can enhance our capabilities, deliver better products for our customers. And then they've been an investor in Sanctuary AI since 2021. Yeah, so very, very cool. This is Jordy, and that's Suzanne. And we just put this clip before, which is the introduction of what their bot can do. Well, any thoughts in terms of the state of their bot and what they're capable of doing?
Well, the first thing I think I have to say is that Phoenix is definitely in good hands, and and that's nice. The other thing is that this press announcement. I mean, any other robot company, humanoid company, would just love to have an arrangement like this with Magna, no doubt about it. And as far as the importance of this is a magnitude 10 on the Richter scale. Okay, it's quite a shock to see that. And again, it's like one of those earthquakes we were kind of able to predict because we could see the early signs that we knew this was going to happen. We knew it was a matter of time before this day was going to come that it would make sense. And it's confirmation that they like what they're seeing. They like the developments that are going on, that they're ready to make this and make this very, very public going forward. So if I was one of the other humanoid bot companies, I'd be so jealous. Absolutely.
They'll all be dropping their own partnerships. Yes. Just last week, we heard another bot company major partnership too. Yes. But the interesting thing about Sanctuary is they seem to have, been very, I don't know if it's slow, but they're like, in terms of their development, they hadn't made announcements, and all of a sudden it's just dropping, right? So now we have the big one with Magna. But just 2 weeks ago, right, they announced this partnership with Accenture. This is a big one. Again, they're picking very large companies. Accenture invested in Sanctuary AI, AI-powered humanoid robotics to work alongside people. Strategic investment from Accenture. Of course, there's a reason why Accenture, who's a major consulting firm, wants to do this. This is what Accenture said. AI-powered humanoid robots are essential to reinventing work and supporting human workers as labor shortage is becoming an issue in many countries and industries. We see huge potential for the robots in post and parcel manufacturing, retail, and logistics, warehousing operations. They can complement cobots with humans. And then this is what Jordy said, combining Accenture's expertise in disruptive technology with our AI industry-leading robotics. We can help some of the biggest companies in the world make this change. And boy, Accenture serves more than 3/4 of the Fortune Global 100 and Fortune Global 500. What's your thoughts about this partnership also, Accenture?
Well, unless you were like a keen viewer of this channel, you can be excused if you had never heard of Magna before. That's understandable, unless you were like right in the automotive space. But I think Accenture is a household word. We don't have to explain. You would have heard about them, not through us, from other places. They are the consulting company for all these top Fortune 500 companies. The way I look at this is like they're basically teeing it up so Magna can come in and take the shot. So they're going to be going in and consulting a lot of these big companies, a lot of the automotive companies that don't have a humanoid solution right now, and saying, we need help. What's going on? We see our competitors are starting to do it. We need to do something. So they'll be able to come in and probably help them navigate or get an idea of what's going on. And then from that, they'll be able to understand, like, oh, so Magna is doing something over here. Let's work with them. We already are working with them. Every single automotive company out there has probably got some kind of contract or something that they're doing with Magna already. So those two together, like I say, just makes a very strong business case for Sanctuary going forward. And again, this idea that humanoid bots are going to become a thing. We're seeing this more and more. We kept on saying at the beginning of the year, 2024 is going to be a wild ride. And when you start seeing these business relationships going on there, you begin to realize that, okay, even if we're not seeing them in the factories right yet, enough people are seeing enough things that they're willing to kind of make these huge gambles and make these huge, very public facing announcements. Because if they're wrong, it's going to be really embarrassing. And so they're not going to make it unless they are really confident what they're seeing. And so they've been there for about 3 years now, and they've been able to see a lot. And it's definitely enough for them to realize that this is the best time to make that strategic relationship, and to let the world know that, okay, the bots are coming, and you may want to start lining up if you want to make sure you're able to get yours in time.
Yeah, let's review for folks who don't know what Sanctuary's Phoenix robot looks like. This is something they dropped just about a month ago, and they're showing that the bot can now, using 2 hands at the same time, do block sorting very quickly, real time, right? That's what they showed here. So they go autonomous. Everything was autonomous. It was learning on its own. It picks up the box, and then it dropped one. That was in real time. That's fast, right?
Yes. And when we first saw that was very impressive because of the speed, that we had not really seen speed like that before, as well as the coordination between the 2 hands. So there's 2 things you need to have that speed. One, obviously, is the mechanics that can go ahead and do it, but all the bots definitely have the mechanics to be able to do it at that speed. The other is the fact that the neural net can process that fast enough to actually coordinate those motions. So in many cases, the reason why the bots are really slow is because they're not able to think fast enough to be able to execute that task. So when you start seeing that, it means, wow, okay, they've got something which has been trained very, very well to be able to do these at very, very high speed.
So far we're just watching, we're seeing the hands. And then I know that Sanctuary told us that they really focus so much on the hands and fingers, like a lot more than other companies have, but we don't see them walking yet, but they don't think that that's as important as the hands and the brains.
Yes. So they have mobility in the sense that it's on a mobile base that they can move around. I'm not sure if it's one that's able to sort of move itself, or it's just to allow them to be able to position very easily. They feel that mobility is kind of a solved problem. And if you think about it, it really is, because there's so many humanoid companies out there that are already walking, and that all of them can figure it out pretty quickly. So I don't think that's going to be a big challenge for them. What they see is a problem is from the torso on up. That's really where the complexity is. You know, the fingers are way more complex than feet. The dexterity you need to have with the hands. I mean, that's really, I don't want to say where the rubber meets the road, but basically that is where stuff gets done, is in the hands. And that's the important aspect. And the legs are kind of nice to be able to give you certain mobility, but in some cases you don't need it. Again, we talked about sometimes you can get away with a base that might be wheeled. I believe that, long term, the best solution is to be able to have a legged solution, because it is way more general purpose. But if you can't figure out how to get your hands to work, I don't care how good your robot is at walking. It's not going to be able to do useful work. And that's what they're seeing, is that's where they want to put their focus in the challenge and the problem there. And if you look at evolution, our brains and our hands basically evolved together. They co-evolved. And that's how they're looking at how to solve the AI problem, and to get some form of true good artificial intelligence, is to get something that has dexterity, that has a good sensor suite. I think the term that Suzanne used was, have a similar sensorium as humans, as far as touch, and other body senses, to be able to detect pressure. Without that, you're not going to be able to get to the general intelligence that they are really trying to get. And of course, they have a really strong background in AI. So if we look at their pedigree, they're coming from a very strong background and know what they're doing. So they feel that this is where you're going to start. You're going to start from the waist up. The legs, they'll be able to solve that at some point. And I believe they should be able to, just because it looked like it was a very difficult problem, because it basically took Honda about 30 years to do it with Asimov project. And then, Boston Dynamics also took a while before it did it. And then suddenly, whoop, everyone's got a walking robot. But not everyone has a robot that has, extreme dexterity. And of course, what we've learned with their hand that's a bit unique is they can do this, which is, the Vulcan salute, live long and prosper, because they are able to spread the fingers out like this. This is something that most of the other bots cannot do. They can only do that. So their hand has a bit more dexterity in there. And they feel that's a very important degree of freedom. And Suzanne is quite the scientist, because whenever a hypothesis comes up, she challenges her team. So well, let's test it out, because a lot of them thought, well, wait a minute, we probably don't need that. We absolutely don't need that degree of freedom. Shouldn't this be good enough? And she said, okay, fine. Let's run a test. Let's go ahead and run it with that degree of freedom locked out. We can do that. Let's run one with sensors or without sensors, and let's see what the results are. And from that, they are able to tune and get a better idea. So I like their approach. Again, anyone who has not seen the interview that we had with Suzanne, definitely do it, because she's just full of so many pearls of wisdom when it comes to what they're attempting to do and how they're doing it. It's absolutely infectious to listen to what she says, and you would definitely will be in the Sanctuary fan club when this is over, because you realize, wow, I mean, it's like there's so many good teams out there, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no losers. They're all winners at this point. They're all going to do very well, and with this announcement, we know that Sanctuary is on very, very solid footing at this point.
Yeah. So let's recap a little bit, right? They announced a partnership with NVIDIA. Oh, sorry, I was going to say that. So they announced a partnership with Accenture. They just announced a partnership with Magna, but we haven't talked about the fact that they also partner with NVIDIA.
Yes.
So they were on the NVIDIA. I'm going to just slow it down there. Can you spot Phoenix? So this is one of 9 humanoid robots that NVIDIA partnered with, and Phoenix is one of them. So this is just, they're using NVIDIA's platform to do the LLM, so you can talk voice to it. You can use it for simulation. And this is an example of them too. So they're one of the partners. Yeah.
Yes. And they were one of the 9 bots that were showing up on the stage with Jensen Huang. And yes, there right there, yeah. Standing right next to Jensen. So yes, good partnerships, good collaboration that they have going forward. And this is an exciting season. I mean, it's I keep on using baseball analogies, but it felt like we just got out of spring training, and now the season is starting about the right time. Well, and it's really hard to say who's at the top of the leader table.
It's bigger than that, right? Because we were saying that, in January, you and I were joking every single 2 days we'd have a breaking news. Joke? Yeah. And at that time, it was about these bots dropping, the ability to use AI. And so that's why they dropped that video where it can do pick and place really quickly. And so every bot was trying to outdo each other in order to do that. Then the next one was, bots, AI, just autonomous work. And then we kept saying that the only company that can really manufacture these bots at scale, every other bot except for Tesla bot, and for Tesla, none of the other humanoid bot companies have any experience creating hardware. And so how are they going to do this? And so we needed to hear somebody step up. Now we know that Digit from Agility, who makes the Digit bot, they said, we're going to create our own manufacturing factory to build bots, 10,000 bots per year in Portland, Oregon. That was it. Other than that, we haven't heard anybody else. So coming from Sanctuary now saying that we partner with Magna, and they are going to make the bots. I just hope that they, the words that they use was a little wonky. I wish that they would create a little bit more straightforward, but it sure sounds like that they're going to build it, because Magna has the experience to create all sorts of parts, supply parts for automotive. So for them to create the bots, it's just another one of their product portfolio, as they said.
Yes. And so, yeah, that is a question. I mean, we know all the other bot manufacturers are trying to look at the solution, but they're, let's say, not as mature, as far along as, at least publicly, what's going on. But I'm pretty sure that behind the scenes, they're trying to think about what their logistics and supply chains, what they're going to manufacture in-house, what not, what supplies are. We know the Chinese bot manufacturers seem to have their act in place because they're already producing them. They already kind of have some of the factories that are ramping up there. In North America, we know the assumption is that Tesla knows what they're doing. We're seeing all the job listings that must be there. Figure we don't know that much about how they plan on doing it right now. We assume that they've got some interesting partnerships, like, with BMW, and could BMW potentially be a manufacturer? But the irony is, like, I think like a lot of the BMW plants are, a lot of that stuff is supplied to them by Magna. and Magna might know more about how to put together a BMW than actually BMW does, because again,
Sure.
they're at that engineering level of knowing what's going on.
Well, I think one difference could be that many of the other bot companies have said that they want to have that in-house. They want to have that DNA. So they're going to create their own factory, create their own. This is the first one where they've outsourced it, which is, it's hard to know which is the right strategy, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, but
right?
it's not quite outsourced. Remember, there's an investment going in there as well. So it's like, that means it's partly owned by Magna. So in that way, it's a very different relationship than if one of the robot manufacturers said, "Oh, we're just going to start working with Foxconn and have them do all that for us."
Gotcha.
So, you never know how far that investment could end up being at some point. A very, very tight relationship. And again, Agility announced the factory, but we don't know how much they're going to be doing on their own, what kind of sub suppliers are going to have there. But the fact they're doing it, we know they're trying to figure out how to ramp up on that. And Boston Dynamics, we know they're trying to work on doing something, but they're not really in the humanoid bot space as far as really wanting to scale up Atlas. They're doing some things, but at this point, unless they're coming out with a new design, it's going to be a while before they have something that everyone else will be able to use. So the ones that are of concern, of course, Tesla, Agility, Sanctuary, Apptronics from North America, and Figure, of course, and then you've got in Europe basically 1X at this point. You and John had an excellent interview that will be coming out this weekend.
They have hundreds of bots already that they manufactured themselves, and they're planning to do 1,000 Neo.
So they already know something about it. And they're going to be scaling, and they're all going to be scaling because they're all seeing the reasons for scaling, the same reasons that everyone else is. And that is like, you can't do it with just a couple of bots in simulation. It's time to start getting some scaling. So next year will be the year of scaling. Now, whether that's scaling to sell to customers, it's not clear right now, but it's definitely going to be the scaling that they need internally. And it could be that scaling is more like the second half of this year rather than waiting till next year. So I think the ramp ups you're going to see for a lot of these different companies. Can
you give me a little bit more what you expect to happen in a year? And I'll tell you why. But give me a little bit more than just it's a year of scaling. Give me a little bit more. What's your prediction?
Okay, well, part of it is for the training. So just making sure you have enough bots out there to be able to
I get that. Tell me give me a little bit more specifics of not why, but what do you think will happen next year?
What will happen is that every single bot manufacturer is going to be able to figure out how to start manufacturing at a reasonable scale, not just a couple of dozen and probably more than 100, but at least 1,000 or so, with the idea of ramping up after that. Suzanne's already kind of outlined it for us that, she can see the scaling of like every year you can increase it by a factor of 10, and by 2030, you get to 1 million within any one bot company. Okay. Or you can look at it like, at least in aggregate, they could all get there. So we're going to start to see a 10x scaling. Right now, we're seeing these companies are maybe making about 100 now. They might be able to do that within this year.
1,000s next year.
And then clearly 1,000 next year, everyone will be able to do for partly their own internal purposes, and also start to do, deployments, piloting, stuff like that. And they're going to find out that they just need the raw numbers of bots to start to really train them to do a lot of tasks. You can only go so far with simulation. And they can get certain results. But the interesting thing, we're even seeing these grad students with their very simple setups that are in like, 100 examples, 50 examples, sometimes a dozen examples. And then these clunky bots suddenly are able to work. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's like, if you can do it in such a few number, in reality, why do you need, these simulations where you need to have millions of iterations to be able to teach a particular task? So you begin to wonder, if you get the right AI and the right solution, everything is built up. It might be that the best way to scale and to train these things is to ramp up the number of bots and to start exposing them in a variety of different environments, at the same time. So I've always felt that they needed to have a large number of bots, and I don't know why it took them so long. And now it seems like maybe we'll start to see through this year. And it's not like they're going to wait till January to flip the switch. Like, okay, now we're going to start building 1,000 bots. They are starting to ramp up now. And so you're going to start to see that ramp through the end of the year, that everyone's got it in there, what that number is. But clearly, we already know a couple of the Chinese companies have made well over 100 bots. They've proven it to be done. And they did that last year. And this year they're already talking about being able to make 1,000 themselves. at least 2 companies that we know are heading in that direction. I'm sure there are others that maybe have not announced it, but have that kind of capability. So it's time for the other bot manufacturers to be able to do the same thing. And for Sanctuary, using Magna, that might be able to give them the in-house edge to start doing that very quickly. Even if it isn't like the scale that they're thinking of for full production, it's like, okay, we're going to start going through here and see how we can do it, and maybe start pumping out something for you by the end of this year that you now have more to work with, looking at beginning of next year, a lot more. So I don't see that they would be doing this as like, oh, it's like 10 years from now, we're going to be ready. It's like, no, they're looking at something in a much shorter time horizon.
It sure looks like it. So the reason I asked you to predict the future is because about 10 months ago, you and I were doing a video recording. I'm going to play that. It's about a 2-minute clip of you talking about Sanctuary.
And what it proves is a broken clock is right at least twice a day. And if it's a military clock, once.
You
so
called
here
it
we
right.
go.
But,
one of Scott's predictions that turned out to be right.
One of the Scott's predictions that turned out to be right 10 months ago. And so if you're watching this, don't get confused. I'm going to play this clip, but it's going to look like me and Scott again on the screen.
And we did not film this like a half hour ago, because the hair, the set, everything is a little bit different. So you can tell that this is actually a little while ago.
Yeah, let's watch it.
And these are their investors. A lot of the others, have some sort of seed funding that are coming in, but there are a couple of household names there, right? You recognize a few of those names?
Of course, yeah.
So, Bell Canada, Verizon, EDC is the Export Development Canada. And do you know Magna? Have you ever heard of Magna?
No.
Magna is the largest automotive OEM that you've never heard of.
Right.
They are a tier 1 supplier to almost all the automotive companies worldwide. They are a joint venture of a Canadian and Austrian company, and they build most of the lines. So they're the ones that go out and get the robots, design the cells, get the tooling, bring it in, program it. They do everything, and then they hand the keys over to the OEMs and say, go ahead and run your factory. In some cases, the OEMs will say, you run the factory for us and build the cars for us. Okay, so they know a lot about manufacturing. And just to give you an idea is that, that Rivian and Lucid are having a really hard time with getting their prototypes manufactured. And, there's other EV companies out there trying to do it. And one of them known as Fisker. And we've all been kind of like questions like, okay, they're going to have the same problem. Fisker said, Magna, build the cars for us.
Yeah.
They actually have a chance to survive, because rather than Fisker trying to build the factory, they're going to someone that already knows how to build automotive factories, is already in kind of the EV space, because there's like, oh, we're going to have to start supplying all these others. So they have that expertise. So when I saw Magna, and this is interesting. Is Magna in there because they know how to build things and they'll know how to build this robot? Or are they there because they're thinking, hey, this robot could be really useful in our factories?
Probably both.
For both reasons. Both. So that's why I point that out. And full disclosure, Magna is a client of ours. Okay?
Gotcha.
So I have worked with them in the past, but I do not own any stock in them or in Sanctuary AI. So I just want to bring that up full disclosure.
Good job, buddy. The only thing you made a mistake on is Fisker is dead.
75% right on my prediction there. It's like, let's say I said they might have a chance to survive. And the reality is they probably would have failed a lot sooner if they hadn't gone ahead and done something like that, because at least they were able to get production. A certain amount of production. I think more or less it wasn't the market wasn't there for it. No one was buying it. It wasn't because Magna was producing an inferior product or anything like that.
Yeah, but you knew that Magna was there, not just an investor, that they probably had already planned this out, that this is why they took investment, that eventually Magna will not only be a first beta customer, but will be a real customer, and then also manufacture it for them and invest more. So Magna to step up like this means that they've seen things that they're happy with. Basically proving useful work. That was one thing that no one was able to do until just 3 months ago. Literally 3 months ago, Scott, you and I have been doing videos like this for over a year now. And what did we hear from everybody? It won't happen for 5 to 10 years. You guys are too aggressive with your optimism. They can't do useful work. And all of a sudden, January, February, March, almost every single one of these bot makers drop videos to show that they can now do autonomous training of many different tasks. And you saw this, that they can do this now. So, where's the just literally a few months later. That's my point. It's not like we had to wait a year, 2 years. It's like, boom.
It's not. And clearly, we're seeing that, at least one of them really is doing useful work, not just demonstrations and pilots, but is being used in different locations right now, and really meets the definition of useful work. So we know it's starting already, and it's been going on for a while. And that was agility. So that's out there. And the other thing is, like, it was pretty easy to make the Magna call, because I've had the honor of being able to work with a lot of different engineers within the Magna Corporation, and they're sharp. They're on top of it. They understand how to do a lot of things, and they're fastidious about a lot of things and making sure processes are done right. And again, looking at how to shave off time, how to optimize things, make cells work a little bit faster, because they know when you start getting these very large volumes, just a little bit here can result in a very big savings somewhere else. So it just made sense. And they're not the kind of guys that are going to sit around and watch some new technology come along and say, oh, we'll let someone else. No, they want to be one of the first ones to be able to implement it. They want to be ahead of the curve. Anyone that's working with robotics would be looking at it. They're going to always be bringing in the first generation bots that they are able to see out there, the best ones, the new kinds of toolings, being able to integrate in different kinds of software and systems, as well as scanning and other, advanced methods of manufacturing. They're always looking at that stuff. That's how you become one of the largest companies in the world as far as being an automotive supplier. And if you want to stay there, you've got to, think like an entrepreneur for the most part. And it seems to me like this is people within Magna realizing that this is a potential trend. They want to catch this wave before anyone else does.
Yeah. I'm preparing a screenshot here. You might like this one. Hold on. Give me a few seconds here. Okay, hold on. Look at this. Okay. Okay, here we are. Watch this. So, the Wright brothers. So, first of all, December 8th, 1903, New York Times published, "Man won't fly for a million years. 1 million to 10 million years. To build a flying machine would require the combined and continuous efforts of mathematicians and mechanics for 1 million to 10 million years." December 8th, 1903. Do you know your history well?
Yeah. Yes. And what's 66 years later?
9 days
put a man
later.
on the moon. Yes, 9 days later, you get that.
9 days
right?
later, they had their very first flight.
Right. And then within 66 years, we had a man on the moon. It's just, it is absolutely crazy. And there were signs. I mean, there were already a lot like Otto Liefenthal and others that were working on this thing that were getting very close. They had some spectacular failures and everything else, but they were getting very, very close on being able to, and also not just Liefenthal in Germany, and I'm forgetting also one of the American pioneers came very close. I think Goddard. I think NASA has a site named after him. I'm trying to remember. It's been a little while, and so they were all working on the problem. And of course, the Wright brothers were not known at that point, but they were solving the problem from a different point of view. That they had the right kind of experience to be able to make the power plant light enough. They were doing, wind tunnel designs and everything. They actually understood the theory of what was going on. They understood wing warping. They figured all these things out, and you didn't need advanced mathematical tools. There's still, to this day, there's all sorts of very interesting cheats that you can do that you don't need to have a computer or a calculator if you're just kind of very clever in how you model things out and using geometry to solve problems for you and everything else. And that's what a lot of people were doing back then. I mean, there was amazing things that mathematicians were able to figure out. So that means from the outside, people do not understand technological trends that much. And it should have been obvious that 1908, if you look at the steam engine, you've got to remember that 100 years before, there was no railroads, absolutely nothing. And if you asked anyone back then, 100 years before, whether something like that was possible, they may have also said, oh, a million years. But to see that kind of advancement, it meant at that time, people still didn't understand the idea of S-curves and technological disruption, because the technological disruption was so new, society didn't understand it. There was just a slow evolving little change, from one century to another, not that much change. The 19th century, a lot of things started to change very rapidly. Yeah. And then the 20th century, you get that really, but everyone was just looking linearly. So yeah. I can't believe they said like a million years. I mean, if you were, you could say it'll take 1,000 years at least. But I mean, do they understand the scale of a million years? Mankind hasn't even been around for a million years,
So this is, same thing is happening. We're at the brink, the birth of humanoid bots, intelligent, what do you call it? Generalized robot, but embodied AI. Right, this embodied AI intelligence will come out of this. This is what the goal is for Sanctuary. They really focused on that. The two founders actually came, Jordy and Suzanne. They came from a company called D-Wave in Canada that was quantum computing. And so maybe there's going to be something. That's my prediction. Okay, they have not announced this, but the brain is quantum in my mind and consciousness, and that's what they're focusing on. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Maybe that won't happen for a million years. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
And the thing is, it's interesting because anyone that's kind of following the whole OR kind of thing, the theory of consciousness mind that Roger Penrose and I think it's Stuart Hamilton kind of proposed how that works. Uses the idea of quantum mechanics somehow being involved in consciousness, and so it's not surprising you get someone coming from D-Wave, which is doing something with quantum computing. And remember, they did quite some interesting things over at that company before deciding to kind of pivot over to Sanctuary. So I think they see some link there.
That's why they're partnering. This is why they're partnering, because I think Suzanne told us in our interview with them that in their minds, the most important thing is the intelligence. And they felt that the manipulation of the hands, and that's what they focused on, and that they are open to actually have multiple humanoid bodies. And so this partnership with Magna, the largest company in the automotive supply, they actually are manufacturers themselves. They can create product portfolio. So one product could be Phoenix. I'll make it exactly the way you designed it. But then they'll go, I'm going to create another version of this, bots on wheels, bots, whatever. They'll make all sorts of products out of this.
They're a large engineering company. So there's no reason why they couldn't design their own bot themselves. The missing piece has always been the AI. And if Sanctuary is able to figure out how to do that, because really Phoenix and the other versions they had was a means to an end. They weren't really concerned about the humanoid bot, but they just needed it as a way to be able to figure out how to solve this problem of the brain. And if they have a brain that's really good, and Magna maybe has looked at it and go, oh my goodness, look, we really think they're going to be there. Now we just need to come up with a body for it. And now they might be thinking, okay, let's start manufacturing, start thinking about how do we change some of the design that's with Phoenix, or maybe we change it up completely. Because you can see there's a lot of designs out there people working on, and you get an engineering firm that I've seen some of the tooling designs they come up with. They know what they're doing. Okay. They know how to integrate actuators and control systems and everything else, and have some things with really strange articulation. So they could throw a crew on there and say, look, let's design a bot tomorrow. And here's a control system that will go with it. Yeah.
This is their marketing material for Magna. And of course, they've got all the tools they need to make any size part. They make all these different parts that they've got. They know how to do this.
And they've got engineers from around the world that they can tap into. Okay. Not just Canadian engineers, not just Austrian engineers, but I'm sure a lot of German and Swiss engineers and American engineers. You just go on and on. So they definitely.
Well, that actually is a good point.
Yeah.
The point being that if you're a company that's massive, that's making money through this thing, they can invest that money into this next thing and build and not be running out of money, as opposed to a startup. If you're a startup and you make $500 million, it's not guaranteed you're going to be able to survive. You need to make your sales to catch up. But if you can't make those sales in time, you're dead. But these guys, almost unlimited money that they have. All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This is great. This is Sanctuary. Hold on. Let me try to just show you what they look like. So that a reminder of that. Sanctuary's humanoid bot company, they partnered with Accenture a couple weeks ago. They announced an investment today with Magna International. Magna International is also going to deploy them in their factories, into their manufacturing capabilities as first client, and they're going to actually manufacture them at scale. They got the credibility, they got more money. And then Sanctuary was able to show that they can already train it autonomously and be able to do the block sorting anyways. So we'll see where they go from here. But thank you for helping me explain what's happened here, Scott. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, Herbert.
Thank you, everybody. We'll do more. Apparently, there's going to be more breaking news. So stay close, Scott. Stay close. Thanks, everybody. Bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.